Today we're going to be talking about One Piece chapter 1086, The Five Elders. There will be spoilers. So, oh my god, is this the best time to be a One Piece fan? We waited 25 years, and I know I keep saying it, it's because I'm so old, and I've been waiting the majority of those 25 years for moments like these, when we get just a whole bunch of answers that lead to a whole bunch of more questions. And we're going to talk about those questions today. So the chapter starts off just kind of popcorning around the events as it wraps up the story of what happened at the Reverie with Sabo and his infiltration with the Revolutionary Army, and then ultimately the fate that befell King Cobra, and he's obviously dead, and the Goroseis, and Emu, and whoever these holy knights are, and the rest of the kingdom's just kind of in disarray at this whatever the hell's going on. It's just chaos at the Reverie now, but CP0's going around looking for Sabo, looking for Vivi. They're just trying to get their, to keep their heads, basically, because they messed up big time. Vivi's on a ship with Walpole, with a direct line to Big News Morgan, by the way, just letting him know where he is. And they're figuring out a way that they can go ahead and escape, which they obviously did, because we already saw that. And you see Sabo bleeding out on a ship, and then Bonnie getting very hungry on a ship. And, yeah. But the Tajin Kingdom, they've also started to rebel, and the Aegis Kingdom has started to rebel. Those are also ships that our allies were being a part of. So I don't know if they actually had something to do with it, or if this is just coincidence. But it is a striking coincidence. Maybe they were just labeled as traitors because they realized they checked all the other ships and then needed to find those ships. So they just put them on blast so that everybody could stop these ships. So Emu really has ultimate control. He requests to use the special weapon that Vegapunk had crafted, and while the Goroseis seem to suggest that, oh, there's people there, Emu says, I don't care. Let's just wipe these people out. And they're like, well, okay, fine, I guess we do need to test it, and hey, maybe we'll figure out how to deal with Egghead Island after, this test. So they really, they didn't try so much to talk back to him as much, or her, as much as just, suggest maybe you don't want to kill a whole bunch of humans. No, they're cool. Just go ahead and wipe them all out. So yeah, I don't even know. Do you guys think that this was a creation of Vegapunk's, or was it an ancient weapon that he just kind of repaired? I think it's the latter, and I think that this chapter kind of hints at that later on as well. Later, like when we hear Emu's name dropped at Kamabaka Queendom, and all of a sudden Ivankov remembers that there was one of the original 20 kingdoms where Saint Emu Nerona was actually one of the 20 original celestial dragons, let's say that. And it's also interesting that there was the saint in his name, because now we have the Goroseis names, and all of their names start with Saint. Saint James, wait, let me get all their names. Let me read these off here. Saint Shepherd, Saint Ethan Barron, Saint Topman, Saint Marcus, and Saint J. Garcia, okay? Ultimately, if you actually look, it's Garcia Saturn, Marcus Mars, Topman Walkyrie, which is kind of like Mercury, Venus Juro, which is Venus, and then of course Jupiter, which is obviously Jupiter. They all have little titles to their names, like the god of agriculture, the god of finance, the god of law, the god of environment, which, what, isn't that the same thing as agriculture? And then the god of scientific defense. So maybe this saint is just a little title to get before they can become immortal, and maybe that's the only difference between the Gorosei and Emu, is that he did gain the immortality, whereas the rest of them have not yet gained it. And maybe that's something he's holding over their heads like a carrot. Like, wait, if we can get a hold of this again, maybe we can then become immortal. You guys can become immortal like me. And maybe that's what stops them from challenging him for the throne, because they just can't kill him because he's immortal, which makes me curious. How are they going to stop him in the future? It's going to be a very interesting fight. But if anybody can do it, Luffy can do it with his new powers. What he could probably do is just rip the power out of him and then throw it to the sun, and then ball him up and throw him to the sun too. I don't know. It's gonna be hilarious, I hope. And last but definitely not least, we finally get to see a holy knight. And not necessarily in action, they just seem to be sitting there. But there's a lot to unpack with his design and just his name and where he comes from and what he did. He executed a celestial dragon. So that shows me that they are the authorities in Mary Joie. These people have basically the authority to, what do you call it? Expedite, or these people basically take care of business, the law and punishment and all that stuff amongst the celestial dragons. And now it's just insane. Like, this doesn't show you that they have a lot of power. Like, I'm talking about like physical power. They just hang this dude. Anybody probably could have done that. We know that the celestial dragons aren't necessarily powerful, like physically powerful. So I already see a whole bunch of people online talking about how this guy can beat Mihawk. Mihawk's no longer the greatest swordsman. You haven't seen him do one thing yet. This is just political power. If he was so powerful, being the old king of God Valley, he should have been able to do something, but we haven't even heard about that. So obviously what probably happened was that Rox and his crew kind of went over there, started creating a whole bunch of havoc on God Valley, or maybe even outing God Valley. Maybe it was like a celestial dragon takeover vacation spot, and it just happened to, you know, the Rox pirates just happened to run into them and maybe take them hostage. And so Garp and some marine admirals and some other folks had to go and stop them, but couldn't without Roger's help. And so, like, it was probably very embarrassing, and the island was probably just destroyed off of the face of the earth, either in the process, something done by Rox, done by any of the pirate, because I mean, Whitebeard probably had his devil fruit back then. He could have easily just smashed that island, and in the process, that island was gone. Maybe it was just decided that, hey, how about you guys don't have a little vacation spot like that? Y'all can just vacation wherever you want to have. Don't have a permanent spot for you guys. But the fact that now he's a holy knight, maybe it's just either an appeasement to him, and since he's no longer a king of his own kingdom, so there's like, hey, how about you just become a holy knight, and then you can just rule over these people with the law and your, you know, execution powers. So yeah, I don't know, I guess we're gonna have to wait and see. This leaves so many questions. Why does Emu want Vivi? That's one question. Did Vegapunk actually create this weapon that destroyed the Lucia Kingdom, or was it just an ancient weapon that he repaired? Was Emu just a regular guy and he got the immortality fruit and then ascended? Or was he super powerful, found a way to manipulate a slave into giving him the power, and then that's just how he stayed on top? There's so many questions now after all of this, and ultimately I just can't wait. We got like 4 weeks though to wait, so I'm gonna be really digging deep. I'm gonna go back through the Reverie, try to create a whole timeline, and then I really want to try to understand what was going on at when a little bit better, and I'm going to bring that video to you as well. And of course, I'm going to be bringing a couple of theory videos. I do have a Halufi video about foreshadowing him becoming the sun god Nika, all the way back from the very first episode of the anime and the first few chapters in the manga. So if you want to be here for that, make sure you guys are subscribed. If you like this video, please like it. Let me know about the comments about any of those questions I talked about today, and yeah, I'll see y'all next week. Peace.